So we were in Baltimore. It was July 9th, 2011.
Oh, this is my story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, let me start it off.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
This was Friday night.
Yeah.
So the seminar started Saturday morning. So we're at this restaurant, and his family is from Baltimore, and he would have.
I grew up eating. We'd go to my grandmother's house, and I grew up with these big family parties of crabs all over the table, and the whole family there, and we'd be eating crabs. And so this is my childhood going to Baltimore from Texas, where my mother's side of the family was. So I grew up. I was raised on crabs. And
so
we're in Baltimore, and I'm eating crabs.
So I grew up in Ohio. Yeah. I probably never touched a crab in my life. So I ordered a steak with 2 crabs, and he had this big plate of crabs. And I took a picture of it, and I still have that picture, and here it is right now. I'm editing it in.
Uh-huh.
And that crab was from his dinner. So and that's my viewpoint. So I'm looking at John, and he's like eating crabs like a madman. And then he stops, and he throws his crab down, and he picks up his napkin, and he's wiping his face and his hands, and he goes, "Something's not right. We got to get out of here. Something's not right." And he's like a little panicky, if you will. So I'm like, okay. So we pay the bill as fast as possible. You want to take over from there?
Yeah, Darren takes me out on the sidewalk, starts testing me immediately. And what had been going on with me is I've been having sharp chest pains, okay, for quite some time, and overall chest pains. And I had all the classic symptoms. I was keeping it to myself, walk up a flight of stairs, be winded, wouldn't be able to walk anymore. The one thing I really noticed one time was walking across an airport, trying to get from one gate to another. And I showed up at the next gate, and I was exhausted. I was winded. And so this had been going on for some time, along with the chest pains and everything else. And then we have this dinner, and I'm coming unglued. I mean, I'm just something's going on. I don't know. Maybe I'm not getting enough oxygen to my brain, but the chest is giving me a lot of problems, and I'm freaking out. So, I'm absolutely freaking out at this point.
So we leave the restaurant, and now we're on the sidewalk. And you mentioned that I tested him. Well, that's a muscle testing procedure where, so being a chiropractor specializing in nutrition, there's a technique where the patient holds their arm up, and I push on the arm, and I'm putting my hand on different parts of the body, and I test them with this technique. It's like a biofeedback technique, and I tell them, yeah, it's your heart. There's something going with your heart. And at that point, I recommended some supplements and dietary changes, and that was Friday night. So Saturday morning, we begin the seminar, and you had access to the supplements at the time, right?
Oh yeah.
And you started taking them. And then
started taking them immediately.
And then you flew home on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then you said it was 2 nights later. You're laying in bed and you can feel your heart was not beating as hard, right? You told me that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It took about 48 hours for all my symptoms to go away, but I do remember distinctly laying in bed, and I could feel my heart just go boop, 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 boop. I could feel this, and literally 48 hours later, that had lessened dramatically. No more chest pains, no more shortness of breath. All these symptoms had started to go away. I'd have to say a month later they had been gone for quite some time, but I know at least a week or 2 later I could lay in bed and I could not even feel my heart. Okay. Now, yeah.
So then now fast forward, and now you've always been interested in sports, athletics. Yeah. Now, had you tried to bike or run before that? Before 2009, you were trying to get into shape?
Actually, kind of, yeah. I grew up as a competitive swimmer. I played rugby for 5 years in college. I played rugby in college, which probably extended my college career to 5 years. But I'd always been athletic. I'd always been hitting the gym. But when I was traveling with Darren, I was actually very much overweight. I was very heavy set. I was in really good shape. So people didn't really look at it that much, but I was about 235 pounds. And so, but I was still going to the gym 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, still eating what I thought was correct. And so, yeah, I was kind of like an athlete in a way. Yeah.
So after that incident from that restaurant, so 2 years later, now you're doing triathlons.
Oh, yeah, 2 years later, I did my first triathlon and got hooked. And so I've been doing triathlons for the last 5 years. I just completed my first Ironman triathlon, and if you're not familiar with an Ironman, that's You swim 2.5, you bike 112 miles, and then you run a marathon, which is 26 miles. And so was able to complete that successfully under 14 hours. It was about 13 hours and 43 minutes. But that's also having a running injury. I was only able to train for the run for about 30 days. So it was a great success for me. So my life is completely transformed. This is 7 years removed from that moment when Darren and I really took a look at my heart. I probably should have had a heart attack 7 years ago, without a doubt, because my father, died of a heart attack, and my brother, who's also 1 year, let's say year and a half older than me, has already to this day had two heart attacks and open heart surgery and the whole 9 yards. So it's been 7 years of great health ever since.
Cool.
So yeah.
So the therapies were nutrition, the right diet, and then various supplements. And the supplements included plants and glandulars. And that's it, right? No
Exactly.
drugs,
No drugs,
surgery.
no surgery.
Right, you're able to
Yeah.
recover from a pretty severe, scary condition just doing it holistically.
Yeah.
So that's
plus go on to live an athletic lifestyle and do Ironman Triathlons. I'll be doing another one this year. So
cool.
yeah.